Thank you, everyone, for coming out to another session of the House Committee on Finance. We appreciate your attendance, whether you are here in the building with us or at home. Tonight, we're going to, I have attendance taken, but tonight we're going to hear a bunch of bills, and we have about 75 guests on the phone, so we're going to make sure we get everybody heard, get everything out there, but we're going to do it in an expeditious manner so that the people who, our guests who are at home, are not up until 11 or 12 o'clock tonight, so I think we can get that done. But the first thing I need to do is make sure we have a quorum. So, Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Chairman Abdi?
Present.
Vice Chair Slater?
Present.
Vice Chair Mazakowski?
Present.
Representative Amore?
Here.
Representative Baginski?
Present.
Representative Barrows? Representative Diaz? Representative Edwards?
Here.
Representative Hull? Representative Nadone? Representative O'Brien? Representative Quattrucci?
Present.
Representative Ruggiero?
Here.
Representative Tabone? Representative Ella Wilkinson? Leader Flippy?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Mr. Clerk. As I was saying before, what we have tonight are a lot of the bills that our members are introducing, and the way we will handle it so that everyone will know here or at home that we will have the bills introduced, and then we will have the sponsors of the bills to tell us a little bit about those bills, and then after that's done, we will go into the telephone calls that we have. But I'll keep us informed as we go along so that we will know. As I say, every week or every day that we meet, I want to thank all of you who do call in. It's important that we get the information from you. It's your right to do so. But because we have so many people, we are limited in the amount of time that we give this testimony. That's not any different than what you do in most of your city councils or town councils, where you may have 3 or 4 or 5 minutes to speak. But here, if you're speaking on a bill, we ask you to identify yourself, to tell us what bill it is and why you support it, yes or no, and give us a couple of minutes worth of comments. Now, you will hear a noise near your phone when it tells you that. That means you've got about 15, 20 more seconds to go, and I'll try to make sure that that you're not interrupted. But I will apologize in advance if you do go beyond that and I have to interrupt. It's not because I don't like what you're saying. It's because I want the next person in line to be able to have their time too, so it's only fair for everyone. Generally, we take the telephone calls in the order that you call in, so there are no favorites. I simply have a list here. We know when you called in, what the number was, that sort of thing. The other thing is that for our representatives here, many have other committees that they're in, so if I see you here, and I know that you're here, I will try and get you up to get your bills done first, the explanation of those particular bills. But unfortunately, you will not be able to have the telephone callers talk immediately after that, but that's why they identify each bill that they are testifying on, so we don't get any confusion there. So as I said, as I go along, I'll keep us informed on that. We have 2 things we have to do tonight. One bill we're going to consider, and considering a bill simply means it's already been heard in the Finance Committee, and that, as I've said before, when we hold a bill for further study, it's because generally there's a little bit more work that needs to be done on the bill. So the bills that are out for consideration are not up for discussion, are not up for debate, but they are up for just voting up or down, whether it goes to the floor, where you do have more discussion and more debate. So that's the process that we've always used in House Finance, and that we will use now to make sure that that the flow of information is done correctly. If there is an absolute technical point or something, we may address that, but we don't go back and rehear the bills that we are considering. So before we even get to, we have one bill that we're going to consider tonight, and then we have about 15 to 16 others that we will hold for further study, just so you'll know exactly what we're doing. So the first bill that we're going to consider, and that's the one that we will simply vote whether or not it goes to the floor for further debate and discussion, will be House Bill 5223 Sub A. So, yes.
Chairman, I would like to make a move to indefinitely postpone H5223 and passage of H5223 Sub A.
Could I get a second? So it's been moved and seconded that we, I'm sorry, was that? It's been moved and seconded that we send House Bill 5223 Sub A to the floor for discussion and debate when it comes up on the floor. Mr. Clerk, could you please
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry, I don't know where in the rules we do not have the ability to discuss a bill before it's voted on in this committee. Mr. Chairman, it is in every committee we discuss bills before a vote is taken. A motion has been made and seconded. Now it's time for discussion before a vote is taken.
As I said before, if you have a technical point or something that you need to ask the fiscal clerk for, that's how we do it in finance. If it is another full discussion of the bill, we don't do that. It goes to the floor for that.
Is there a rule or precedent that you can cite that says we are not allowed to discuss a bill before we vote on it?
I am going to read the differences between the original bill and what is in the Sub A, but that's already been published. After that, we will take a vote.
I'm going to make comments before we vote. It is standard rules of procedure in Masons, which governs our operation, that a discussion ensues before a vote, Mr. Chairman. It's basic parliamentary procedure in every legislative chamber and in every committee of this House.
Well, I'm not going to argue with you over that. If there's a statement that you need to make, I will allow you to make that statement, but we're not going to have a full discussion before we do that. So I'll concede you that, but I'm making that ruling, and then if you don't like that particular ruling, and I know it's nothing personal, we'll just simply have a vote of the people who are here, and we'll vote it to the floor. But if you do have a comment that you want to make before you decide to vote up or down, you can do that. I'll allow that.
And I think the committee members are entitled to hear everybody's opinion.
Rep. O'Brien.
According to our rules, Chairman, once a hearing...
It's not on.
The hearing is where comments are being made. When we consider it, and it's just a vote.
I understand that. I know.
I hope Representative O'Brien could cite the rule that he is referring to.
It's our rules.
Which
Look it up.
rule, Representative O'Brien?
I have the rules in front of me.
They're
but
right
I
in front
do
of you
know
on
the
that
rules.
computer. They're in front of you on that computer.
I'll look it up.
Please, look it up.
Here's the way we're going to conduct this, and that's going to be a final decision. If Leader Filippi wants to make a comment before he makes a vote, then I will allow that. That's fine. But a full discussion on a bill that has been closed, I will not allow that. So that's the difference between the two. I don't want to keep anybody's opinion out, because the floor is the place where we go and we hash everything out. So before we take a vote, for those of you who have not read, and I think most of you have, what goes into the Sub A, that was the next step I was going to make until I had to address the concerns of Leader Filippi. Okay?
Not been able to discuss.
So,
we're doing that shortly.
the first bill is the bill we are considering is 5223 Sub A by Sakarchi. And this act authorizes the State Lottery Division to enter into contract extensions with IGT and Bally, which was formerly Twin Rivers. And these are the Sub A changes that were made.
No problem.
One,
All right, bye-bye.
the Sub A increases the IGT upfront payment to the state from $25 million to $27 million, and assigns an additional $1 million of the upfront payment to Bally's. Two, it increases the IGT investment obligation from $150 million to $155 million. Three, It increases the penalty for failing to meet the employment obligations from $6,400 per employee to $7,500 per employee, and bases the obligation on a 3-year average instead of a 2-year average. 4, it increases Bally's annual payment for problem gambling programs from $125,000 to $200,000. It increases the amount of commercial space Bally's is obligated to rent in Providence from 12,000 square feet to 20,000 square feet. Next, it increases the purchase price for the naming rights for a park in the I-195 redevelopment district from $100,000 per year to $250,000 in year 1, and then $150,000 in year 2, and $100,000 per year thereafter. Next, it requires Bally's to add 30 senior management employees by December 31st, 2022, instead of within 2 years of passage of this act, and provides the same monetary penalty for failing to meet the obligations that applies to IGT, and it names the act after Mark Christofoli, a longtime executive at Bally's and IGT. So those were the changes that made this a sub-A bill. And now, Leader Filippi, if you wanted to make a statement before the vote, please.
Gladly, Chairman, and I appreciate it, and I know things get heated in here sometimes because we're all passionate about it, and I love the way you run your committee like a gentleman. I sincerely appreciate that, sir. One comment I want to make briefly is that during the hearing we had, I think last month, the executives from IGT said, you've already crossed the Rubicon, it's too late, there's no way you can do a conversion by the time our contract ends in 2013. So we did an investigation as to other lottery changeover contracts, and that statement is just completely inaccurate. And we looked to Kansas, who put out an RFP for a full revamp of their lottery system in November of 2016. By August 28th of 2018, 22 months after the RFP was put out, a fully operational new system was installed by Scientific Games, which had beat out IGT in the bidding for that lottery process. So the notion that we're too late, we can't put something out to bid before the contract ends is just simply not reflective of the facts throughout this country. Mr. Chairman, we've spoken a lot about this bill, and for years, what we were dealing with was the 9.5% of net VLT, video lottery terminal income that IGT takes from the machines. This bill now goes beyond the IGT issue we were debating for over a year and extends Twin Rivers' contract with the state for an additional 13 years, their contract that now expires in 2030. That contract provides that Twin River gets 28.1% of net lottery income a year. In 2019, that was $145 million. And here's the most problematic thing, Mr. Chairman. It provides that Twin River takes 86.4% of the revenues from the table games, compared to the state's take of 12.7%. And the towns get some too. Twin Rivers' take from the table games is $136 million a year. That's combined equals $282 million a year, compared to what IGT takes out of it, which is $48 million a year. IGT, for that $48 million a year, is guaranteeing us 1,100 jobs. Many of those jobs, most of those jobs, don't need to be here in the state of Rhode Island in order for IGT to service its in-state operations. What's Twin River guaranteeing us for far more money than IGT takes out of the casino, which is our business, by the way. It's important to note it is the people's business. They are our agents. Twin River is guaranteeing us 30 jobs, 30 senior level management jobs, compared to the 1,100 that IGT is guaranteeing us for a fraction of what Twin River takes out of the casino. That's problematic. As to the 9.5% of net terminal income that IGT takes out of it, under the most conservative analysis in the leasing relationship, we're not buying our own machines, but if we were, we'd be saving $221 million a year. And that's using Mr. Christofoli's numbers, which he presented at the hearing. $221 million a year, or not a year, excuse me, over the life of the contract that the state is overpaying by leasing these machines. And in addition to that, The central management system, which we're paying IGT for, 2.5% of net terminal income, compared to the 1% of net terminal income that they charge Kansas for a central management system, that equals an overpayment of $156 million over the life of the contract. I want to go back to the table games real quick, Mr. Chairman. It's our business. There was a dispute about that. I'd urge anyone to read the state constitution. It's the people's business. They are our agents. In Massachusetts, right across the border, where the license belongs to the casino holder, they pay 25% of the revenues from the tables to the state. Why are we getting half of what Massachusetts does? That's $20 million a year, and for the next 20 years, that equals $400 million a year in overpayments. So I have a lot more to say. I think the jobs guarantee is insufficient. I don't like the notion that they are allowed to use subcontractors and even people who right now maybe don't work for IGT and can't count towards the current jobs guarantee. I think it's wrong that those people can now be counted towards the job guarantee. For instance, a cleaning crew for the IGT corporate headquarters right now can't be counted towards a job guarantee. But if we pass this bill allowing them to be counted towards a job guarantee, you're going to see a reduction of the workforce because we're massively broadening those people that can be counted towards IGT's job guarantee. And I'll go into the contract length of 20 years. This is a technology contract. Mr. Chairman, 20 years ago, I think I still had a beeper or a flip phone. We should not be entering into a 20-year technology contract. Like most states, we should be doing 10 and 10, a 10-year contract with a 10-year option on behalf of the state to renew. This contract has so many problems with it, and I think we're doing a major disservice to the taxpayers of this state. I'll have a lot more to say on the floor. This is the wrong bill at the wrong time. We should wait. We should put these things out to bid and see what comes in, and then make a decision. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Leader. I'm glad you gave me a heads up on what I got to face on the floor. So there is a silver lining.
That wasn't all of it.
No, I know. But no, I appreciate your passion, and I agree with you that sometimes we get heated on the floor, but there's nothing personal. But anyway, so if there are no other just comments, this is the time for the clerk to please call a roll and see if we send it out to the floor.
Chairman Abdi,
Yes.
Vice Chair Slater,
Yes.
Vice Chair Mazurkowski. Yes. Representative Amore,
Yes.
Representative Baginski,
Yes.
Representative Barrows, Representative Diaz, Representative Edwards,
Yes.
Representative Hull, Representative Nadone, Representative O'Brien,
Yes.
Representative Quattrucci. He's muted. Representative Ruggiero,
Yes.
Representative Tabone. Yes. Representative Velo Wilkinson. Leader Filippi.
No.
Vote is 9-2.
Okay, if you could try Rep. Barrows once more and Rep. Quattrochi, I just want to make sure that if they're muted, that they get counted.
Okay, I'll call Representative Barrows.
Rep. Barrows, can you hear me now?
I can, yes, sir, I can hear you.
Thank you so much, my kind guy. I believe the clerk was calling the roll, and we were on Bill H5223 Sub A, and we're just voting to determine whether to send it to the floor or not. And we saw you come on, so we need your vote, and up or down.
So, absolutely, Chairman. I think, I do have some questions about the bill, and I know, we haven't really had that much time to look at the bill. I do sympathize with some of what
He didn't answer.
Rep. Filippi says, but my vote is yes.
Okay, thank you. Rep. Quattrochi, I know you're out there, I believe. Just want to make sure we get your vote counted, sir. Okay, I don't know that he's muted or what, but anyway, we tried. Okay, so the count is now what?
Stands at 10-2.
10-2? Okay, so 10-2 means that we will send the bill to the floor for discussion and vote. Thank you very much for that. So now, the next part of what we will do is we have over a dozen bills that are on the agenda for the evening, and generally I try to go down the line as it is, but I'm going to try to make sure that a couple of the representatives asked earlier, and this happens all of the time, that they've either got other committees to go to, so we try and get them up first, and then they can be out. But that doesn't mean that your supporters come up first with you. It just means they have to hang on until we get to them on the line. So with that said, I think that's all of the administrative stuff we have to do before we get to the actual bill. Is that correct? I'm just double checking.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's true. What I need to do now is to hold all other bills. There's, like I said, over a dozen for further study.
Do you need to read the numbers?
Yeah. We're gonna do,
No,
I'd make a motion to hold all the other bills for further study.
okay, I just wanted to address one question. Yeah, and it's a good question, because I say we're holding all further bills for further study. That will encapsulate all of the others that are left. So Vice Chair Slater has made a motion to hold
So
all
moved.
further study.
Second.
And second by Chairwoman Ruggiero. Would you please call a vote, please?
Chairman Abdi,
Yes?
Vice Chair Slater,
Yes.
Vice Chair Mazakowski. Yes. Representative Amore,
yes.
Representative Baginski,
Yes.
Representative Barrows,
Yes.
Representative Diaz, Representative Edwards,
Yes.
Representative Hull, Representative Nadone, Representative O'Brien, Representative Quattrucci, Representative Ruggiero,
Yes.
Representative Tabone, Representative Vella Wilkinson, Leader Filippi.
Yes.
Yes, I said.
Yes, sir. Our Representative Hall is present. Thank you. And I'm assuming you're voting in the affirmative for holding all further bills for further study.
That is correct, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
And the IGT bill?
And you also voted in favor of the consideration of the IGT bill to go to the floor.
That is correct.
Thank you so much. So noted. Okay, so now we think we are on to the bills. And as I say before, I'll call your name because most of you are there, and just explain what your bill is, and we'll go from there. So Representative Morgan, please, welcome.
Hang on, I got it. Thank you very much for your kindness in taking me first, Chairman. My mother really appreciates it. My bill is to raise the estate tax exemption to $5 million. This actually is a bill that will affect, I think, mostly small business people. We've seen in the last year, because of the lockdown, just how precarious it is to have a small business in Rhode Island. After years of risking it all to build a business, to struggle against our regulations and all the other things that we do to small businesses in Rhode Island, if they're successful and grow, something like this lockdown can just take it all away. There are thousands of small businesses that have gone under in the last year. Providing anyone who is successful with a $5 million exemption on their estate is an inducement for them to stay here and try again. One of the things that I think we should acknowledge is that every state needs a tax base. And one of the things that our current estate tax exemption, which is only $1.5 million, does is it gives people who have developed wealth, who have been successful in their lives, no reason to stay. They can go to so many other states and not have to worry about the hard work of their life being taken away in an estate tax. So on both reasons, one is we just have to acknowledge that small business people who are successful risk it all. Many times they use their homes as collateral to get started. And it is so hard to stay in business here in Rhode Island. It is so hard to be successful that we shouldn't penalize them when they are. Because when we do penalize them, or let's put it this way, when we don't give them an inducement to stay, they leave. We know that most of our prominent families have left. They go to states where their estate is not going to be taxed. And, you know, they stay down there, they stay there or wherever they are for 7 months and come back to Rhode Island. They love Rhode Island. They'd stay here if we made it easier for them to stay. But we make it too hard for them to stay. So that's my bill. Anybody have questions?
No.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the sponsor? I miss your smile in the committee. Okay.
I do too.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're
thank you,
a family here with the
thank you,
people, know it or
fellas.
not. Thank you so much. But thank you for, coming back to our committee again. We do miss you.
I miss you too.
Okay. So if there are no further questions, then thanks for introducing your bill.
Thank you, Chairman.
You're welcome. Okay. I'm seeing who we have with. Is that Rep. Place? You right there? Okay. You can come up and introduce your bill, please. And I'll get Rep. Casey right after that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know the bill number off the top of my head, but in essence, what the bill does is it provides a tax deduction for volunteer firefighters. This came out of my time in service on a Harrisville Fire District Operating Committee, and their goal of trying to find volunteers to man the fire trucks on a regular basis. And one of the biggest barriers they ran into was they have to pretty much pay for their own trip through, thank you, 5493.
Yeah.
They pretty much have to pay for their own equipment, their turnout gear, and their time at the fire academy. And the local volunteer fire departments are hesitant in paying for this because they get concerned that they'll pay for this volunteer to go, and then all of a sudden they're going to wind up down in a major city or another department along the way. So what winds up happening again is this volunteer firefighter that stays inside the fire district and volunteers is just out the money that they paid for to go to the school, take the classes, maintain their professional competence throughout their career. And all this would do is just allow them to just write it off as a tax break when it comes time to submit their taxes. If for any reason in the future, at some point after they submit this as a tax break, if they do get reimbursed, they would have to report that reimbursement as income. So again, the state would, regain anything it may have lost if that should take place.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions of the sponsor, please, on that particular bill?
This is just a great bill, Mr. Chairman.
I think you're right. Okay.
I agree.
Yeah. The comment was it's a great bill. Yeah, I know it. But thank you so much, then. If there are no further questions, appreciate it. Okay, Rep. Casey. I'm sorry, Chairman Casey.
Thank you, sir. I've been called worse and still responding. I have 3 bills before the committee tonight. I am definitely in favor of Representative Place's bill. I think a volunteer fire service is very important, especially for our rural areas. So that's my bid on that. House Bill 5677 is a bill that I have perennially submitted to the committee. It's an act that would create a tax deduction for military retirement benefits of a veteran or a veteran's surviving spouse. I'm just going to read you the change in the language. It's very short, and there is no testimony on this bill. Section, let's see here, Rhode Island General Law 44-30-2.12 regarding income tax deduction for military retirement benefits. There shall be provided as a deduction from the Rhode Island personal income tax an adjusted gross income deduction for income from retirement or survivor's benefits received during the taxable year by the individual or the individual's surviving spouse for the individual's service in an active or reserve component of the Armed Forces of the United States, including all of the service branches that are listed. I know there's no verbal testimony on that bill, so we could move right on to the next one.
Thank you.
This is one of my favorites. This is House Bill 5678. It's been a favorite of mine since 2013. This is regarding out-of-state pension benefits. And I will give you a brief synopsis and a quick explanation. This act would exempt state taxation of certain pension benefits that originate from and were taxed prior in another state. To give you an example, and there is only one person who will testify on the bill verbally, but there is quite a bit of written testimony that the committee can take a look at. This happens specifically as I know it in Massachusetts. We have a number of Massachusetts retirees from the Massachusetts Teachers Association who have retired and live in Rhode Island. Some of them were previously lived in Rhode Island their entire lives, but taught in Massachusetts. Massachusetts retirement system for teachers is a post-tax benefit. So the teachers pay taxes on their income, and it's post-tax money that gets put into their retirement plan. So they've already paid an initial tax, income tax, on that particular investment. So now, as they are retiring or are at retirement age and take a distribution from their pension plan, or the pension is paying them on a regular basis, the state of Rhode Island is taxing their income for their retirement. I think this is a very reasonable bill. We've been trying to consider this for quite some time. My constituent, Fred Hartnett, brought this to my attention in 2013, and we have been before the committee every year since. So that is all I have for the introduction on that. And House Bill 5690, this is regarding veterans benefits. And what this particular bill does is literally it changes one line of the legislation, but what it does is it defines as disabled a person receiving Veterans Affairs disability benefits paid by the federal government for the purposes of property tax relief. I have a constituent of mine who, for the last 3 or 4 years, we've been submitting this legislation. Prior to that, Representative Price has been, I'm sorry, not Representative Price, Representative Jason Knight has been submitting legislation for my constituent regarding this same bill. So we have, this is another perennial favorite that I think we need to really start to consider. And I will give you a brief warning that my constituent is very passionate about this issue. So I hope you enjoy his testimony, and I thank the committee for all the work that you do and all the time that you guys put into making things right here in Rhode Island. Thank you, sir.
Okay, good. I know that constituent very well, trust me. You're a nice person. Leader Filippi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Chair Casey. I have a question about 5678 real quick. So you're saying that in other states, someone is taxed on their income and then they contribute that post-tax income to a pension system, and then if they move to Rhode Island, when the pension funds are distributed to them in their retirement, we tax it again?
Correct. We pay, and I'm not sure whether it's paid on the, I'm not sure whether, or I'm not sure whether it is credited based on only the income that they had previously deposited into the retirement account.
Yeah.
That's where we need to make the distinction. And I believe my star witness has the information. I believe my star witness, I'll just speak up loud if you don't mind. I believe my star witness has the information that will answer your question when the testimony gets there.
Thank you. It seems eminently unfair, Mr. Chairman, that people are being taxed twice on their pensions. Thank you.
Yeah, I have to be careful with any comments on pensions because I get taxed on mine too, and I'm retired, and it's.
Well, maybe we could change that for you, sir.
Yeah, it's dear to my heart, but.
Move passage.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing it up, and I should have lead Filippi would second that for us. So, but anyway, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, we got Sir Phillips is there in the background. I'm coming down the back row. You're next, Representative, but Phillips, okay. I see.
It is, it wasn't on, I'm sorry. Chairman Casey decided to just play with me, I guess, shut it off on me. Gotcha. Thank you. I do know my number, it's H5215, and you will hear a few people that are going to testify in favor of this bill. My bill is similar to Representative Morgan's bill, but it raises the estate tax limits from $1.5 million to $2.5 million in 2023 and to $5 million in 2025. First thing we're going to say is that the federal tax rate on estates is $11.5 million. So we're not even anywhere close to what the federal exemption limits are. Second is that 33 states have no estate taxes. So over almost 2/3 of the states do not have estate taxes. And there is only 3 states that have either the same limit we have or worse limits than we have. There's 2 states that have $1 million exemption instead of 1.5. Of the other states that are notable that have a higher exemption that still have estate taxes is the state of New York at almost $6 million, the state of Minnesota at $3 million, Illinois $4 million, Maryland $5 million. The Washington, D.C. is at $4 million itself, and they have estate taxes, but they're at a $4 million exemption. Vermont, another one of our New England states, is at $5 million. The state of Washington is at $2.2 million, and the state of Hawaii is at $5.5 million. I have talked to 2 financial advisors, and when they talk to their clients that have a substantial amount of money in their estates, they are advising them to move out of state, as Rep. Morgan has stated. And we have lost 40 people from one financial advisor over the past 5 years themselves. So we're getting exactly, if we are taxing them at 16%, which is the highest rate that we tax our estate taxes at, we're getting 16% of zero because they've moved out of state. COVID has brought this to the forefront even more because now we know that a lot of companies are telling their employees to work from home. So when you work from home, you can work from any state you want. And that hence another amount of people are leaving the state. Next door in Connecticut, which we try to mirror ourselves with either Connecticut or Massachusetts or both or come close to it, they have an exemption of $7.1 million. So we're not even anywhere close to them at this point. And that is pretty much all on that. The only comments I would like to make on other bills is Chairman Casey's bills. I'm in favor of all 3 of them, 5677, 5678, and 5690. I do have 2 constituents that have talked to me over the years, along with Chairman Casey, Dave Andrioni and Jim Dwyer, who are teachers out of Massachusetts. They've spent 30+ years teaching, and they are being taxed twice on their money also. So there's 2 more examples besides his person that is going to testify tonight. And I appreciate your time and consideration, Chairman and members of the committee. The only other thing I was going to make a comment is we do have a representative that lives in Jamestown, and I just read an article in the newspaper that said the average home value of a house in Jamestown is $1.6 million. Now, that house alone, if they own that house outright, they're over the tax limit. So it just doesn't make sense that we're staying at $1.5 million instead of becoming more palatable with the rest of the states and with the federal government.
Well, thank you. I'll have to see if Chairwoman Ruggiero knows that homeowner that's there. So.
I wasn't making any names there,
I know,
Chairman
I know.
Abdi.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. That was the last bill.
And I will answer any questions if there are some.
This is the fiscal.
Right. Are there any questions of the sponsor of the bill? Okay. Thanks very much. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
I'm going to go out of order for just a second because I believe there's another engagement that Chairwoman Ruggiero had a bill she wanted to get in. And I see that Whip Kazarian has sneaked in the back, but I'm going to still get to the other 2 who were here before you. No. Welcome here, please.
Thank you, Mr.
Representative.
Chairman. I appreciate it. Thank you, members of the committee. H5681 that's before us is a property tax relief bill. The Circuit Breaker Act, it modifies the current law that we have that says our seniors, 65 plus, and people with disabilities can get a tax credit on their state income tax. Currently, that credit is $400, and my bill raises that to $750. And like a circuit breaker in an electric panel, the property tax circuit breakers are tripped when a senior 65 plus making $40,000 or less whose property taxes exceed 6% of their household income. For renters paying more than 20%, they're also eligible. So it's a state-funded tax credit on their state income tax. Why does this matter? Over 30% of our seniors are living in their own home are cost burden, and about 50% of renters are cost burden. So this law has been on the books since 2006, and we have not changed the current $400 tax credit in 14 years. It's an economic security issue, really, for our seniors. They're older, they're living on a fixed income, their income is not increased, yet their property taxes have most likely increased over the past 14 years. So to be clear, the local property taxes are paid to the municipality, but seniors literally have to apply on their state income tax form on the back, and you can see that it's a $400 credit. Yes, there is a fiscal impact since we're sitting here in House Finance. About 14,000 seniors took advantage of this back in 2018, so it's around $3.74 million. But we could also consider phasing in the tax credit so that perhaps it's, $500 next year, $600 in 2023, $750 after that to mitigate the fiscal impact. In case you're wondering, Massachusetts tax credit program for their seniors is $1,150, and Maine provides a $750 tax credit. So I've been working with AARP on this bill, as well as former Representative Maureen Maigret. She's with the Long-Term Care Coordinating Council. She serves on that. So that's essentially the bill that's before you, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Chairwoman.
And I'll answer any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Any questions for the chair, please? The sponsor of the bill. Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
For introducing that bill, please. Okay. I'm going to go to Rep. Alzate, who's been waiting. Welcome.
Thank you, Chairman. This is my first time testifying in front of this committee, so please be nice.
No, that's not in my DNA. No. Welcome, and please feel at home, and please explain to us what your bill is.
Yeah.
We'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you. So thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. I'm in favor, I'm here to introduce my bill, House Bill 5227, personal income tax. This proposal, which will add one new tax bracket for the purpose of for state income tax. Our proposal is to raise the income tax bracket from 5.9% to 8.9% on income over $475,000 if you make over $475,000. This will allow for the top 1% of earners, approximately 5,000 Rhode Islanders, to pay their fair share of taxes in the state that they call home. When we talk about increasing taxes, we never talk about the benefits of this action. Increasing taxes has been a dirty word for many. House Bill 5227 will make increasing taxes the cleanest thing that we do because it's the right thing to do. When this bill was proposed in 2019, we knew then that the importance of generating revenue. We need to build better schools, better roads, infrastructure, and continue to support social services that serve some of our most vulnerable population and allow communities like Pawtucket, Central Falls, Providence, and Woonsocket to thrive. It is now 2021, and we are in the middle of the worst pandemic in 100 years. Last year, when we were at the beginning of this, many of our communities were in dire need of supplies, toilet paper, hand sanitizers, and most importantly, food and health care. This year has hit our economy last year, it had hit our economy in the worst way, and now we are finally seeing the light. We need to figure out how to continue to support our communities. Raising the income tax on the wealthiest of Rhode Islanders is the way we support our state and our residents. We have an opportunity to be leaders in taking care of our residents. When we put money over people, everyone wins, even our economy. Today, you will hear from some well-known organizations and people. They will tell you that we don't need this tax because we are getting federal money, and how we can't raise taxes in the middle of a pandemic. But it is the right time to do this, because if we enact it this year, it will take effect beginning with tax year 2022, which means that we won't see the estimated revenue of $128 million until people pay their taxes in 2023. And by then, most of the one-time federal relief aid will be spent and gone. Also, Rhode Island and the country have made a lot of money during this pandemic. The highest earners in Rhode Island and in the country have made a lot of money during this pandemic, while our low-income residents are struggling to pay their rent, buy food, and maintain their health care coverage. It is fair to ask these high-income folks to help make sure that we have what we need. The support of this increase is not to address the coronavirus recession. That's the point of the one-time federal relief dollars. We need a long-term solution to help with not only the recession, but also to elevate all Rhode Islanders. Our tax code disproportionately benefits the wealthiest and systematically benefits white Rhode Islanders over Black and Latinx Rhode Islanders. This bill is an investment in our state that will raise valuable revenue and help rebalance our tax system. I've talked about all the things that this bill will do, but let's talk about what this bill will not do and touch on some of our myths. This bill will not affect most small businesses, although we hear this from the opposition that it will. The proposal will impact very few small businesses, and the vast majority will not see any changes. In fact, when this bill passes, the state will have more money, which then means we can invest in schools, beaches, roads, and programs that help people like childcare. This bill will also not make the wealthiest of Rhode Islanders move out of state. We know that when people move from state to states, it is not because of taxes, but because of work and family. We need to put people over profit, and this legislation does just that. Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee, and I will answer any questions.
Thank you. You did very well. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
You're good. Okay, great.
Thank you.
Are there any questions of anybody on the panel for the representative at this particular point? See how easy that was?
You guys were gentle. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Okay. Then the next bill, I think, is that, I can see you now, Morales, you're in the back. Okay, yeah. Rep. Morales, you want to introduce your bill, please? I know I'll pay the price for putting you before the whip, but, you know, it happens.
No, not at all. Life's all about risks, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Whoa, I like that.
Youngest first.
Okay. Please proceed, sir.
Now, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, thank you again for the opportunity to discuss and consider House Bill 5674. In summary, this bill would establish a surtax on the business corporation tax for publicly traded corporations subject to the SEC disclosure and reporting requirements if a corporation's ratio of compensation for their chief executive officer to median worker is equal to or greater than 100 to 1. Now, for decades, across our country, the wage gaps between CEOs and workers has drastically increased. In other words, the poor have gotten poorer while the rich have gotten richer. To elaborate, the pay ratio between CEO and workers was 20 to 1 in 1965, 30 to 1 in 1978, 58 to 1 in 1989, 188 to 1 in 2009, and today it is roughly 317 to 1. So while the average worker compensation has grown by just over 10%, the compensation for a CEO has increased by over 900%. Therefore, the purpose of this legislation is to address some of the severe income inequality happening locally in our state. For context, this bill would only impact about 5 corporations, and they are as follows. CVS Health, whose pay ratio between median worker and CEO is 790 to 1. Hasbro, whose pay ratio is 237 to 1. Textron, whose pay ratio is 191 to 1. Citizens Financial Group, whose pay ratio is 149 to 1. And United Natural Foods, whose pay ratio is 140 to 1. Now I want to be clear. The effect of this surtax on a corporation would be limited, as it would only be an added 10% of what they are already paying in their corporate income tax. For instance, if Hasbro paid $90,000 in their state corporate income tax, then under this bill, they would only pay an additional $9,000 for a total of $99,000. Furthermore, it is important for us to remember that our state and federal corporate income taxes have been very, very kind to large corporations that underpay their workers, as we cut our state's corporate income tax by 2% in 2015. And through the Federal Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, the federal corporate income tax was cut by nearly 15%. Therefore, the passage of this bill would not lead to job loss or the common threat that these corporations will choose to leave the state, as they are already thriving in immense profit. Now, despite the massive benefits of these corporate tax cuts, which I just mentioned, the local wage gap between workers and CEOs still continues to grow higher and higher in the state of Rhode Island, showing us that the trickle-down economic model presented by former fiscal conservative leaders does not work. Through the passage of this bill, though, we will push these large entities to understand how they are contributing to income inequality and encourage them to increase the pay of their lowest and median earning workers. After all, it is the workers, productivity, and labor which allows for these corporations to award their CEOs with tens of millions of dollars, especially throughout the COVID pandemic, where CEOs have seen their compensation grow, while working people continue to economically struggle. Therefore, it is absolutely wrong for the CEO of CVS to receive over $35 million a year, while their median worker only earns $46,000 a year, which then forces them and their families to depend on public assistance, like Medicaid, housing assistance, food stamps, or cash welfare. In other words, it is our state government and the taxpayers of Rhode Island who are subsidizing the implications of income inequality. While these corporations can choose to ignore the purpose of this bill and simply pay the established surtax, then that would mean additional tax revenue for our state that we can invest towards public education, healthcare, and/or affordable housing, which are ironically the issues most important to underpaid workers. After all, several local governments have passed this type of surtax in the past, and as a result, it has helped them yield an additional $2 to $3 million in their local budgets. As I close out, overall, this is an important piece of legislation we must pass if we are serious about addressing income inequality in our state and helping create a more equitable economy where working people and middle-class families are finally able to receive a share of the corporate profits that their labor makes possible in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And just for a technical matter, I think you said Bill 5674, but I think it's 5647, or is my information? I just want to make sure they're correct.
You are correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. No, just a technical matter. Okay, are there any questions of the Rep. Tabone, please?
Thanks, Representative Morales. So a lot of these, the 5 Fortune 500 companies that we have, and CVS being the largest, while they started here, they no longer really have, the only loyalty they have to us is that they started here. But the incoming chair for CVS was the, I believe, the chairperson at Aetna, and Aetna's a Connecticut company. Do you think that they have the resources to go somewhere and maybe move CVS out of here, or no?
Are you in reference to the current CVS chair and whether or not they would want to pack up their bags and move from Rhode Island?
No, not the current CVS chair. I'm talking about CVS as a whole. I'm talking about the the only thing that we have left is that, like Newport, the breakers are still there and the mansions, but the people who own them are no longer there. We've lost a lot of these people. Why wouldn't one of these companies just get up and go as well?
Because again, they already have the infrastructure and a very generous corporate income tax at the state level that other states would not provide them with.
Okay. That's it, Chair. Thanks.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Any other questions of the sponsor, please? Okay, thank you very much for introducing the bill. Okay, now Whip Kazarian. I think you're there. Welcome.
Chairman, thank you very much. All right, I have two bills before the House Finance Committee, and I'd like to present both of these bills. I'm actually glad that they're both on the calendar together because they help two different generations. I'll pick up the first bill, which I like to call the Millennium Bill because it's mostly sponsored by millennials, except for David Morales, who I think might be Gen Z. But basically what this bill would do would be to help a lot of the younger people here in Rhode Island who are heavily burdened by their student loans. This is something that came up in discussion during a lot of the different jobs that I had here in Rhode Island. I worked for two of the different tech companies here, both Upserve and Virgin Pulse, and many young people say that the burden of their student loans would force them to put off buying a house, put off getting married. So this bill would just take a small step and allow people with student loans to use that as a tax break when they're going to pay their state taxes to Rhode Island. And then the second bill, 5212, would help our seniors here in Rhode Island. This bill actually came to me from a constituent. And right now, people in the United States can use as a tax credit, they can apply any of their medical bills or dental bills as a tax credit. So this would allow our seniors in Rhode Island to also do the same thing here on their state taxes. So happy to take any questions. Thank you again for listening.
No, thank you so much for introducing both the bills. Are there any questions of anybody on the panel for? Yes, Rep. Nardone, please.
Yes, Rep. I just want to applaud you on this piece of legislation for the millennials, as you said. I know a lot of students, a lot of young people that are overburdened with debt, and they're having a tough time getting themselves above water, so any little bit helps. So I just want to commend you on that. Thank you.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You didn't do that because she's a whip, did you, Rep. Nardone? I know. He's
It's just that good of a bill.
No, he's a great legislator, and when he says, he thinks you're doing a good job, I think you're doing a good job too. So
I appreciate it.
Thanks for bringing that on. Okay, did I clear everybody off the walls? And I want to make sure I didn't miss anyone. Okay, thank you so much. All right. So now I will look and see. I think on. Do I see Rep. Amore? I'm sorry, Chairman Amore is out. You've got a bill, sir?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I can see we did not go by alphabetical order tonight.
It never happens. I try, but it doesn't happen a lot.
Last but not least. So I'm here to present 5229, which is kind of the Bud Light to Rep. Alzate's Budweiser. It is a personal income tax increase, a new bracket at 6.99 on taxable income over $500,000. This tax that would be collected would go into a restricted receipt account and would be spent on public education. Aside from all the federal money that we are receiving, we on the Finance Committee know that year after year, our members come before us and talk about much needed funding for things like transportation aid, things like special education aid. Many of our communities feel as though they have been shortchanged on the funding formula change over the last 10 years. We talk about the issue with financing charter schools. We talk about ELL categoricals. So there are a whole host of items that are aligned with education. And while we are improving our school infrastructure through bonds, unlike Massachusetts, which has built the most new public schools in the country over the past decade, we do not have a steady stream, sustainable stream of revenue to support school construction. So in my view, this bill is a marginal tax increase that would be targeted toward these specific education items. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee. I'll be happy to take any questions.
No, thank you for putting the legislation forth. Any questions on the panel for Chair Maury at this point in
I
time?
just have a statement.
Yes.
Chairman, and I think it's a very good bill, and you have my full support.
Did you get that?
Thank you, Rep.
Mr.
O'Brien.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions? Thanks, then, for putting it forward. Let me try to see who else might be out in the stratosphere. Is Chairman McNamara? He won't be attending? Well, I'll just read his bill into the record. Chairman McNamara's bill is House Bill 5363 by McNamara, and it provides a tax exemption on pension income up to $15,000 for persons not qualified to receive Social Security. So if there are no questions on his particular bill, that's considered done, read into the record. What about Chairman Solomon? Okay, then his bill was 5117, and that provides a tax credit for contributions for physical improvements to public schools. So that's read into the record. Rep. Casimiro? Okay, I don't see her on the net here. That's Bill 5114, and it provides a $500 tax credit to nurse practitioners and physicians who agreed to provide on-site technical education to nurse practitioner graduate students enrolled at URI or RIC. Rick. Okay? So it's Bill 5114, so that's read into the records. Oh, that was postponed? Okay, I'm sorry. It wasn't on the record. All right. So that one was postponed. And then Rep. Slater has a bill.
Thank you, Chairman. My bill, I've been putting in the an increase for the state earned income tax credit, which piggybacks off the federal earned income tax credit. I've put this bill in for a number of years, probably since I've got up here. Years ago, when Rhode Island first put in the earned income tax credit, I believe that was my father's legislation that he had submitted for the original earned income tax credit that made it into the budget. But the earned income tax credit, basically, for those that might not know, is a benefit for working people with low to moderate income that the federal government and many states, which Rhode Island is one of them, and local communities offer. It is designed to incentivize the work and help reduce poverty, particularly for families with children. So this, I know we just passed an increase in the minimum wage. Sometimes folks like to say this goes hand in hand, but this is a great way that you can get everyone on board, because what it does is it incentivizes folks to work, and it provides a credit. Particularly helps families with children, and so it's been something that I've supported for many years and would love to see increase. And I know my colleague and friend, Representative Bill O'Brien, also has a bill on the earned income tax credit. He's going a little bit higher than me, but I don't want to segue into his. But I guess sometimes great minds think alike. So thank you.
I'm not sure what's in the air on this committee tonight, but I guess there are a lot of good minds. Okay, thank you. So that's 5013. And right behind that is Rep. O'Brien's bill, 5366. Please, sir.
Thank you, and I also agree with great minds think alike. But I want to go a little higher. I want to go 50% of the federal tax rate on the earned income tax credit, and that's because it does support work. It supports working families who get up every day, have kids, have children. They go to work. They deserve a living wage, and this will give them a living wage. But they're working. They're encouraged to work, and it also helps small businesses because they're not. It helps small businesses. It helps working families, but more important than anything, it gives them a working wage. And I'll take 20%. I'll take 25%. But we need to increase this earned income tax credit to encourage work among Rhode Islanders. And by the way, either my bill or either Scotty's bill or my bill will all those bills that we heard yesterday, where they're coming up with plans to give money to people who want who are working. They want to just give them money. Pass the earned income tax credit. Why not do that? Because if you go back to work and you're having a working family, you get this money with an earned income tax credit. So we don't need to pass anything else. This is a strong bill. It's a bill that's been and this bill, 50%, is that will make us the leader in the country. And that's the way we should be. We should be a leader in the country in encouraging people to go to work. And no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, that's important. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, and I'm happy to see the cooperation between two Finance Committee members on two different bills, but for the same thing.
Well, Chairman, you know we're very good friends.
Yes, I know. So if there are no questions of the sponsor of that bill, then we will end that particular bill. Let's see, I believe I've exhausted the list of the bills that we had to introduce this evening. I think so. So in that case, then all of the bills that were held for further study, the hearings on those bills are closed. Well, we have telephone, but okay, I'll do that the very last thing. Okay. Well, so thank you very much for introducing all of the bills. And now what we'll do is we'll go to our phones, and one more time, we thank you for staying in with us, but we have about 75 people on the line tonight, and what I'm going to try to do is make sure everybody gets a chance to say what they want to say on the bill. However, you do have a couple of minutes to do so, but if you're testifying on more than one bill, like on 3 or 4, we'll give you an extra minute to get that done. Again, it's not to rush because we do take written testimony, and that written testimony is very thick and is always online to be seen. So this is 2 bites at the apple. Okay, and remember, you will hear a little noise on your phone once it gets to about 15 to 20 seconds before we expect you to wind down. If not, I apologize in advance because I will let you know that we need to move on to the next guest that we have. Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
We're ready for our phone. Sorry? Oh,
Mr. Chair, Bob Quattrochi.
Oh, okay. I didn't see you. Okay, Robert.
I think I missed my vote to hold all bills.
Oh, okay. And was it up? Was it yay or nay?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, and did you, Rep. Quattrochi, we did vote to send the IGT bill out to the floor. Did you want a yay or nay on that vote, sir?
That's a no, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right. Okay, so we will get the first person on the line, please. Hello, is this Patricia?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. This is Chairman Abdi on House Finance. Just please reintroduce yourself and let us know which bill you're speaking on, and you have a couple of minutes or so to do so. Okay.
I'm Pat Thompson, but good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the House Finance Committee. Thank you for holding this hearing on H5227 and H5229 relating to the personal income tax. As I said, I am Pat Thompson, tax partner with Pitcherly Gilstein & Company, LLP, a CPA firm in downtown Providence. I'm also on the Greater Providence Chamber of Commerce Board and a member of the Rhode Island Society of CPAs Federal and State Taxation Committee, and I've been a chair of the AICB Tax Executive Committee. My testimony here tonight is not necessarily the views of Pitcher Lake Gilsey and Company, LLP. I oppose both bills for the following reasons. Rhode Island would become an outlier compared to the highest tax rates of other states across the country, with only 5 states being higher. Rhode Island will be higher than our neighboring states of Massachusetts with the 5% tax rate for most sources of income, and Connecticut's top tax rate of 6.99% that applies at a higher level for a married couple filing a joint return. Business owners operating their business as a pass-through entity would be subject to the higher rate, reducing the cash flow available for reinvesting in business expansion and employment opportunities. Many business sectors, including IT and professional service sectors, can work remotely and can easily move their employees to states with lower income taxes. Businesses leaving the state may have a ripple effect down the supply chain as they have lost a customer. Rhode Island's Business Tax Climate Index ranking has improved to 37 out of 50, as reported in the 2021 State Business Tax Climate Index report issued by the Tax Foundation. For comparison, in 2011, Rhode Island's rating was 42 out of 50 when the top tax rate was much higher. Increasing the personal income tax rate may have an impact on the rating, as one of the components used in the index is individual income taxes. The start of the tax bracket in each proposed bill can easily be lowered with future legislation affecting many more individuals and business owners, again, negatively affecting Rhode Island's economy. I've included the 2021 State Business Tax Climate Index report with my written testimony. Thank you for your consideration of this provision, and I hope you vote to oppose H5227 and H5229. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Patricia, for your kind words and for your information on those 2 bills. Thank you. Okay.
You're welcome.
Next caller. Melissa?
Yes.
This is Chairman Abdi on House Finance. You're on. How are you doing tonight?
I am doing well, Chairman Abney. Good evening, and good evening to your fellow committee members. You have quite a group there.
Yeah. Okay, so we're ready for your testimony for a couple of minutes, please.
Thank you. So my name is Melissa Travis. I'm the president and CEO of the Rhode Island Society of CPAs and Rhode Island Business Forum. I did submit formal written testimony stating opposition to both 5227 and 5229. Both bills are proposing to add 1 new income tax bracket for the purposes of Rhode Island state income tax. I am not going to read that testimony verbatim and instead would like to comment. The numbers that we're seeing right now are not good. We're still in tatters. As Go Local indicated today, Rhode Island is ranked 2nd worst out of all states for unemployment recovery and 5th worst since the start of the crisis. It finishes saying only Vermont had a worse week. And Vermont doesn't have powerhouse manufacturing industries and what used to be a thriving hospitality industry, a vibrant downtown Providence or beautiful Newport, and yet here we are. My bigger concern is there is a misconception, and I believe a misunderstanding, that the majority of people impacted by both bills operate as pass-through entities. Therefore, saying small businesses are not impacted is incorrect. And according to the Tax Foundation, those are the dominant business structure in the country. It seems to be misunderstood. Pass-throughs file more tax returns and report more business income than C-Corps. Small businesses operating as pass-through entities are everywhere in Rhode Island, include partnerships, S-Corps, and LLCs. These are businesses at the end of the street where you get your coffee in the morning, your dry cleaner, your hairdresser, and you're going to hear more of that tonight. It matters because these business owners report their business income on their individual and personal tax returns. So it's not just raising taxes on the rich, the 1% that we all hear about. We don't have Bill Gates and Warren Buffett on each corner, to be sure. Yes, it's a few folks, but it's the small businesses we're talking about here that would be impacted, and the numbers are much higher than they're stating, and they have not recovered from what's the worst crisis any of us will see in our lifetime. Obviously, the jobs these small businesses support is critical to the economy, and of course our recovery, which by all accounts we are near the bottom. So our next moves will determine how or if we recover. My own industry, which was horrified at the thought of going remote last March, has not only adopted but thrived thanks to a new era of technology, 5G, mobile servers. They can all move next door or to any state that offers a more favorable business climate. In fact, RISPA has been working with small businesses since the very beginning of the pandemic through multiple federal and state programs in every form, every small business imaginable. They are in a shambles. The majority are in crisis mode, have not recovered, and almost all of them face an uncertain future. So we cannot decrease what little disposable income they have. It discourages them from hiring, bringing back jobs, investing money into the economy, which will never be more important than it is at this moment in time. It's just wrong. Even if we were in booming economic times, a proposal like this will hurt an economy, so imagine the devastation when we're still dealing with terrible economic turmoil. I want to talk really quickly about the tax code. That prior to 2011, our highest tax rate was 9.9, and even though businesses were able to itemize deductions, it stood out. That number 9.9 stood out on rankings. So to give the appearance that Rhode Island was more competitive, changes were made that eliminated all deductions in the tax code, but it lowered the highest tax.
Melissa. I'm sorry, but another 15 seconds. Mm-hmm.
No, that's fine. The change was revenue neutral, but by no means reduced the tax liability. So we're very concerned that we're going to lose businesses to this. And I want to just also say that the thing that it doesn't take effect until January of 2022, like was stated earlier, these businesses are not going to have recovered by then. They're still having one sleepless night after another. So I want to urge everyone to please vote against this legislation. I also want to end on a positive note, Chairman, if I could, for Rep. Phillips 5215 relating to the estate tax proposal to increase that to $2.5 million effective January 1. I agree with everything that was stated earlier. This is damaging to family businesses. We've seen businesses lose everything or families lose everything. So we would appreciate the committee's support for legislation 5215 and Rep. Morgan's H6072 for that matter. And thank you. I recognize you're all going above and beyond, and we appreciate everything you're doing on behalf of the people of Rhode Island.
Thank you, Melissa. We really appreciate that. Okay. Next caller, please. Alan.
Yes.
This is Chairman Abdi, your on-house financer. Please just state your full name, the bill that you are testifying for or against, and give us a couple of minutes on it, please.
Yes, sir. So thank you for the time. My name is Alan Litwin. I'm a CPA, and I'm talking about Bill 5227 and 5229. I am the Managing Director of Conlitwin Renza, KLR. We're the largest CPA firm in Rhode Island. We're the 82nd largest firm in the U.S. and the second largest regional firm in New England. And I have the unique perspective of understanding the impact of these proposals to increase the marginal tax rates on higher income taxpayers. And I'd like to point out, and I know Melissa said this as well, we're not a state with a lot of publicly traded companies and Fortune 500 companies who pay high wages. Most of our high income individual tax clients are small businesses who have their business income taxed on their personal tax returns. They're structured as S corporations, partnerships, or LLCs. And these profits are not always reflective of cash, as many of our clients reinvest their profits back into their companies, and they create jobs, and they spend funds on capital in order to grow their businesses. If we increase the taxes on these businesses, the result will be less job creation, less capital spending, which will benefit Rhode Island. And worse than that, it's going to cause businesses to leave the state and certainly make recruiting new companies much more challenging. I think we've all learned during the pandemic that companies can relocate easily from high-tax states to low-tax states, and their employees can work remotely. We've seen that in California. We've seen it in New York. Texas and Florida are booming with those companies moving from high-tax states. The Rhode Island isn't terribly business-friendly to start with, certainly better than it used to be, but it's still not great. And this will make it infinitely worse. These proposals will make Rhode Island's marginal tax rate as much as 80% higher than Massachusetts, which isn't exactly a low-tax state. And there's no question Rhode Island will not be at all competitive in the region. As Melissa testified, there's the misconception that Rhode Island had a tax cut in 2011 from 10% to 6%. And I've had conversations with some of the representatives in the House. In fact, I was involved with that. The goal was to make the state look better in national surveys, but it was actually revenue neutral. The rate went from 10% on income after deductions to 6% on income before deductions. In the most recent Department of Revenue study, the top 4.5% of taxpayers in Rhode Island paid almost half of the income taxes in the state. The end result if these proposals are successful would be to chase these taxpayers and their businesses out of Rhode Island, and ultimately the state will have less dollars to help those in need. We can respectfully disagree about what is fair, but businesses will vote with their feet, and these policies will hurt the people who otherwise would benefit. Please consider voting down 5227 and 5229. And thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you, Alan. We appreciate your testimony, sir. Okay. Hi, Dave.
Yes.
Good. This is Chairman Abdi. You are on House Finance, sir.
Thank you. Good to talk to you again.
Great, great. So just to give us the bills that you're testifying on, and then in a couple of minutes we'll try to, get all the information I know you've got.
5229, 5227, and 5215.
Okay. Okay, you can proceed, please.
Thank you, Chairman. The business community as a whole is just now starting to come out of a difficult, as worse than the 2008 recession. Rhode Island is the second worst for unemployment recovery and fifth worst since the pandemic. Rhode Island has one of the poorest rankings relative to pro-business. These two bills will just make it more evident this is not the state to put down roots. When the current rate was brought to 5.99%, employers gave up all of their deductions. Both bills fail to understand the impact this will have on small business, especially the subchapter S corporations, which are known as the pass-through entities. The pandemic has hurt this state, employers, and their employees. Our state government should not be putting forth tax bracket adjustments, but working to get our economy back on its feet. I have been told there are numerous companies filing for bankruptcy. Increasing taxes will have a negative effect on business with the potential of less expansion and less hiring. In today's world, business can operate anywhere. Let's not make it an option to a business to consider downsizing their operations or moving to a more friendly tax environment. In addition, we are seeing a record number of businesses apply for the PPP monies again. This in of itself is an indicator that the business community is not fully out of the woods regarding stability of their operations. Now is the time to be supporting the business community that creates jobs and generates income for our state revenues. I urge the committee to not support these two pieces of legislation, Bill number 5229 and Bill number 5227. In regards to Bill number 5215, as a former small business owner, I can express from experience my personal support of H 5215. Rhode Island is one of only 15 states in the U.S. with an estate tax, and it is increasingly becoming more of a burden as property and land values escalate to the highest rates in recent memory. Estate taxes are damaging family businesses because the heirs and relatives are more likely to lose the business and retain ownership if the owner dies or decides to retire. Many businesses started out by taking loans from a bank, a second mortgage, or taking whatever savings they had to get the business off the ground. This I did personally. Their hard work will hopefully generate a business that becomes very successful. It is their hard work, sacrifice, and long hours that will secure their future retirement. Most small businesses are hopeful to pass this success to their families, whether that is in land, building, or the business. We urge the Finance Committee to support this legislation and recognize the efforts of our business community to pass this success onto their family without incurring higher tax on their successes. Chairman, that's my statements on those three bills, and I wish you and the committee thank you for all your effort and work.
Thank you very much, Dave. All of your expert testimony helps us make some tough decisions sometimes, so we appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening. Next caller. Lynette.
Thank you, Chairman. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Just give us your full name for the record, the bill that you're testifying on, and whether you're for or against in a few moments, please.
Be happy to. My name is Lynette Foy-Menard, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the Northern Rhode Island Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber wishes to be on record in opposition to House 5227 and House 5229. Both of these bills propose to increase the tax rate on income. The Chamber opposes the passage of these bills because many of the quote-unquote individuals affected by these tax proposals are small businesses. You've heard them referred earlier tonight as pass-through entities, and those entities include their income and their expenses associated with their businesses on their personal income tax statements. I am one of these pass-through entities. I'm not at this level. Someday, hopefully, I will get there, but I do include my own income and my expenses on my personal income tax. House Bill 5227 and 5229, we believe, will hurt the very businesses that are trying to survive during this pandemic. Last week, the Revenue Estimating Conference heard testimony from its own economic advisors. IHS Markit predicted that the recovery from COVID is not expected to be fully realized until the fourth quarter of fiscal year 2023. That's a long way to go. Raising taxes will make our tax rate higher than our neighbors. It will hurt our ability to attract new businesses and new taxpayers and chase away those with the financial ability to relocate their businesses to lower income state taxes. For these reasons, the Northern Rhode Island Chamber of Commerce opposes the passage of 5227 and 5229. I'd be happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman, but I will leave it at that.
Thank you so much for your testimony. We appreciate it, and keep working hard.
Thank you, Chairman.
You're quite welcome. Okay, next caller, please.
Relocate their businesses to lower income
Stephen.
taxes.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you? I'm getting a reverb. Do you have your television on?
I have my iPad on. How about that?
Oh, okay. Good. Now we've got just you. Okay, you're on House Finance. Sir, just give us your full name for the record, the bills that you are testifying for or against, and you have a couple of minutes, sir.
Excellent. My name is Stephen Monticelli. I am testifying, and thank you for the opportunity to testify on House Bill 5227, 5229, and 5215. I am a founding partner in the firm of Restivo Monticelli. We have offices in both Rhode Island and in Florida. We have about 60 employees providing accounting, tax, and business advisory services for both high net worth individuals and private companies that employ thousands of people in Rhode Island. We talk with clients continuously about the pros and cons of both living and working in Rhode Island as compared to other states like Florida and Texas. Raising the tax rate on high-income individuals and doing so without reinstating deductions that were removed by the General Assembly would have significant long-term consequences and be detrimental to our state's economic health and vitality. Although the General Assembly may prefer to tax the so-called rich, these are the people that create jobs, make investments, and sign personal guarantees on debt to create these jobs. Bear in mind that most small businesses are taxed to individuals via flow-through entities as corporations and partnerships that we've heard from other people testifying. A tax hike on those making either more than $475,000 or $500,000 per year will result in intellectually based businesses and or workers fleeing Rhode Island for friendlier tax climates considering the new world acceptance of a remote workforce. This is not a myth. Just look at New York or California for proof, as their high-taxed residents are flocking to both Florida and Texas. The private sector reacts very quickly to tax increases. Companies in this state have a difficult time enough in recruiting qualified professionals locally, as these people do not want to move to a state that has disproportionately high income tax rate. This is especially true now as people look for ways to offset the impending federal tax increase. So what is happening is companies are finding a way to shift their businesses to states like Florida or right over the line in Mass, where they can successfully compete and recruit top talent.
Perfect example is Goldman Sachs Asset Management leaving New York in favor of West Palm Beach over the next year or so. Furthermore, COVID has created a new opportunity for employees who may choose to become permanent remote workers, which will shift where state taxes are paid. On the downside, employees do not need to remain in Rhode Island to work, as they can be just as effective working remotely on Zoom. I hear it all the time. In light of our COVID existence, I am staying at my house in Florida and working remotely. If these workers choose to stay in other states, Rhode Island will lose revenue. On the upside, many Rhode Island residents will not return to work at Massachusetts-based companies post-COVID. The commuter rail from Boston to Providence to Boston is a 3-hour round-trip commute with wait time. Many of these individuals will continue working remotely on a permanent basis for their Massachusetts-based companies. As a result, these employees will soon be paying their full share of Rhode Island taxes instead of just the difference between the lower Massachusetts rates where they used to work as compared to the Rhode Island rate where they live. Rhode Island will see a windfall next year as a result and will make up for some revenue shortfalls. The bottom line is increasing the income tax rate on high net worth individuals is going to create a deadweight loss. It will have a ripple effect on all areas of the Rhode Island economy. If a high earner does choose to remain in this state, they will have less disposable income to pump back into our economy, less money for charitable contributions, and the list goes on. It creates a vacuum effect. Do you really want to be the next New York or California, both of which have had a mass exodus and as a result lost seats in the House following the recent census? Don't mask a spending problem with an increase in tax on high earners.
30 seconds, Steve.
Please direct your efforts on cost-cutting measures. Do we need 39 cities and towns with independent local governments? This issue was not addressed in the last economic crisis. If not now, then when? No, we should opt to be more like Florida or Texas, who have a booming economy due to their favorable tax policies. Attracting and retaining businesses and building a strong, vital workforce needs to be this state's top priority. Please consider rejecting House Bills 5227 and 5229. With regards to the estate tax,
Steve?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll give you another minute, but and I know you had several bills, but you're at the very short end of the time. Okay?
Sure. With respect to the estate tax, I think creating a Rhode Island environment where the estate tax exemption is much higher, as is promoted by Bill 5215, is an absolutely great idea because it'll help keep people here after they retire. That's it, Mr. Chairman. I thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Is this Rest Easy at Restivo's?
No. That's the air conditioning place.
Okay. I'm looking at the list and the name. I'm thinking there's a song in the back of my mind going, but no, I appreciate your comments and take good care of yourself. Okay, buddy.
Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome. Okay, next caller, please. This Patrick Crowley?
It is.
Hi, Pat. This is Chairman Abdi on House Finance. Just reintroduce yourself for the record, please, and let us know which bills you're on, yes or no, and you have a few minutes to do so.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My name is Patrick Crowley, and I am the Secretary-Treasurer of the Rhode Island AFL-CIO, speaking on behalf of the 80,000 members of our affiliated unions in the state, and I'm speaking in support of Representative Alzate's Bill 5227. Mr. Chairman, I've had a chance to listen to the testimony, and like you, I've been around for a lot of these hearings. I've heard the business community talk about tax increases when the economy is good and say that we can't raise taxes because it will slow down a steaming economy. I've heard them talk about not raising taxes when the economy is bad because it will slow a recovery. You know what? I might be just a Zamboni driver, but I'm pretty sure I understand their argument. They just don't want to pay their fair share. It comes down to that. And what this bill does is require them to pay their fair share. I might not be a CPA, but I understand math. And when the top tax bracket in the state is paying a smaller percentage of their income than the bottom 4/5 of the state, that's fundamentally unfair. I think this bill is a very important step forward. One, because it establishes economic justice that doesn't exist right now. And two, because it sets us up to have a strong recovery. We've tried it their way. We've tried cutting taxes on the rich. We've tried cutting taxes on corporations. It doesn't work. Let's try something different this time. Let's raise this tax bracket so that it's fair for everyone in the state. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. And I would just like to recognize Representative Ella Wilkinson for being here and then voting in affirmative to hold all bills for further study and
Correct.
then moving the IGT bill to the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. All right, next witness. Hello, you are on live with House Finance. If you could just introduce yourself and talk for a couple of minutes about which particular bill you're here to testify on. Go right ahead.
Hi, Chairman. This is Rachel Flum. I'm with the Economic Progress Institute, and I'm here to testify in support of Rep. Alzate's Bill 5227, and also to touch on the EITC bills, 5013 and 5366, and briefly to mention our testimony against 5215 and 6072. So, at the Economic Progress Institute, our mission is to improve the economic opportunity for Rhode Islanders and ensure we have the adequate revenues to fund goods and services that we all enjoy. And this conversation tonight is really about tax fairness, as Pat just mentioned. We've heard from a number of CPAs who are worried about our highest earners, but I think it's important to focus on tax fairness for all Rhode Islanders. And as he mentioned, if you look at our testimony, you can see that we have a bar chart that shows that our tax code is actually really regressive when you take into account all taxes. Our lowest earners are paying more as a percent of their income than the highest earners in our state, and that is fundamentally unfair. If you look at what the state needs in order to provide the goods and services, including things that the business community values very much, making sure we have good schools so that their workers can send their kids there, making sure we have good roads and bridges so that they can get their customers to where they need to go, and making sure that we have the good outdoor spaces that Rhode Island is known for so that people will come here for their business. Those are the sorts of things that we need to invest in, and Rep. Alzate's bill ensures that we can invest in those long after the federal one-time stimulus amounts are done. This, as has been pointed out, this is for tax year 2022, and so we would see this revenue in 2023, and it really is the time to do this now so that we can ensure that after those funds go away, that our state is set up to support everyone going forward. I just also want to point out, the argument that people are fleeing just isn't, there may be, I hear CPAs who know of people who have left, and that is anecdotal and true for those few people. But if you look at the data, for 20 years, between 1997 and 2016, less than 2.5% of Rhode Islanders moved out of state in any one year, and most of this loss was compensated for by those moving in. Our census did not lose any people this year, and if you look at a state like New Jersey, who just passed a tax credit on the wealthy, they have seen their census numbers actually go significantly up. So, I think this is an important legislation, and the complement to it is House Bill 5013 by Rep. Slater, and of course, if you're feeling adventurous, O'Brien's 5366, because the using tax credits to support those at the lowest end of the spectrum at the same time that you're increasing taxes on the wealthiest is the best way to deal with tax fairness. And then just briefly, the estate tax, the idea that we're having a conversation tonight about the thousands of Rhode Islanders who need support to ensure that they can provide for their families going forward, and at the same time we want to raise the estate tax deduction for a few families. I mean, the numbers are small. If you look in our written testimony, you can see that this really only helps a handful of folks in our state every year, and it costs significant revenues to the state, which we cannot afford to let go at this time. And lastly, just on the pass-through question that has come up on Rep. Alzate's bill, I appreciate that there are couples that have pass-through income, but if after you are deducting your expenses and the amounts that you're paying your employees, if you still have $475,000 at the end of the year, then you are in the top 1% of tax filers in Rhode Island, and we would expect you to pay more. Thank you, and I'm open to any questions.
Thank you very much. Seeing no questions, you're all set. Have a good night. Next witness. Hello, you're on live with House Finance. If you could just introduce yourself and talk for a couple of minutes about the particular bill you are on to testify. Go right ahead.
Of course, yes. Okay, great. So my name is Miguel Youngs. I'm here to testify on Bill 5227. So I am a Rhode Islander born and raised, grew up in Warwick, went to Pilgrim High School. Maybe some of you that are familiar with it. I'm here to talk about this bill as someone, who went entirely through the Rhode Island public school system, all the way through to college, Rhode Island College, got a job in Rhode Island, worked in the entertainment field at some of the theaters. I'm sure some of you have been to PPAC, Trinity Rep, the vets, worked at all of them. And like so many other people like me, when this pandemic hit, I lost my job. And it was obviously challenging, still realizing coming back. And frankly, for me at least, it's not going to come back anywhere near in the capacity that it was. But this isn't a sob story for me. It's mainly because why this bill is important to me is because as I understand it, creating this tax bracket and only making what, to me, someone who's just nowhere near that level of income, a modest increase of 3%, that truly would result in, I don't know, what was it, $130, $150 million a year for the state. I see so many things from my time growing up, from my time working on Rhode Island, that I think would benefit so much from that. And top of my list, personally, and I know I'm not in charge of spending the money, but it would be the schools, just especially the buildings that are falling apart. And I know that's a big topic in Providence, but I can tell you as someone from Warwick, at Pilgrim High School, this was over a decade ago, maybe more than that. But even then, ceiling tiles falling, hitting students, it was a thing that truly happened. That's not an exaggeration. And the building just crumbling. And as I understand it, that school, I'm only focusing on it because I went there, that school's student base has increased dramatically since they consolidated the system. So I think just by generating that money, it could go to so many useful things. And as someone who lost their job, I'm aware that there's some folks, and this is not to disparage them, who have actually benefited from this pandemic, especially like executives in the medical field, which I know is big in this state, have probably seen their income increase dramatically as a byproduct of this. And not to disparage them, but I think by creating this extra bracket, it would even give you, the state, and the whole finance committee more administrative flexibility in how you create tax revenue. So even from that standpoint, I think it'd be a good idea. So yeah, that's basically my testimony. I'm for this bill.
All right, I appreciate you taking the time and hanging in there and testifying on this, Miguel.
Of course, happy to do it.
Next up. Hello, you're on live with House Finance. If you could just introduce yourself and then talk briefly, a couple of minutes about the particular bill you are here to testify on. Go right ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. My name is Ellis Waldman. I'm a resident of Providence and also have been a lifelong resident of Rhode Island. And I'm here to talk essentially really about both bills, HR 5229 and 5227. I find them linked. I am the owner of a company in Providence, Rhode Island, founded in 1931 in Providence, Rhode Island, called Walco Electric Company. And I thank you, all of you on the committee, for giving me this opportunity to speak. Thank you. So before I address the points that I would like to communicate, I just want to make sure I'm understanding one thing that very clearly. So for those of us, people like myself, who have an S corporation or an LLC or some other pass-through corporation or type of entity, am I correct that that income that comes from that business entity added to my personal income, as it is on an income statement, income statement for tax purposes, that would all be subject to this new tax of 6.99%. Am I correct on that?
That's something that the sponsor of the piece of legislation would be able to answer, and they are currently out of the room. But you can look at the piece of legislation and review it with an accountant.
So, okay, so I'm going to assume that what I've been told is correct. I just wanted to verify that. And that, in fact, that income that would go on my personal tax return is considered in the total of $500,000 or more of income. So my first point is, if that's the case, then I think that this particular tax is focused on people like myself, mostly small businesses. It doesn't represent in any way, shape, or form what, in fact, my personal income is, because my income could be much smaller than $500,000, but the income from the business could make up the difference. To me, at this time, to place that kind of a burden on smaller companies, when many of us are just getting up off our knees after what we suffered with COVID, it just absolutely doesn't make any sense. It will retard, or in some cases possibly stop, our recovery of growth. And if it does that, then it adversely affects new and existing jobs, as well as new investment in Rhode Island. The next point that I would like to make is that, am I okay to speak? I hear noise. Is that okay?
Yep, you can keep going. You got, that's a 30-second timer, so you got 30 seconds.
Okay, so the next thing is, I believe it will continue to damage Rhode Island's overall business climate, which discourages other companies from moving here. I'm moving fast. The state needs to attract companies and not drive them away. I think this would drive them away. And actually, why does the state need to do this? From what I understand, it's to have money for education, as proposed. But to me, that doesn't even make sense either. With a $1.7 billion windfall that the state has, I'm sure that there's some of that money that could be available for education if, in fact, that's what's needed. The tax on business that discourages businesses moving here and encourages business already here to move out is not a good thing, and that's what this would do. The next point I want to make is...
Well, so the 30 seconds is up. If you could just wrap it up, please.
Yes. So I just want to say that the profit is not cash, and so I simply stated that these are two bills that penalize Rhode Island business, as well as reinforce Rhode Island's reputation as an unfriendly business state, that I believe are basically harmful and to the state with very little benefit. And so I'm against both of them, and I thank you very much for your time.
And I thank you very much for hanging in there and testifying, Alice. Have a good night.
Thank you, you too. Thank you.
Next witness. Hello, you're on live with House Finance. If you could just introduce yourself and then talk for a couple of minutes about the piece of legislation you're here to testify on. Go right ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Chairman, House Committee. I'm Craig Backel, the president and CEO of a little company called Bullard Abrasives up in the North Central Industrial Park. We were founded in 1927. In 2006, while we were situated in Massachusetts, I was looking for a place to relocate. Originally, it was going to go to Florida. And then having some roots in Rhode Island, I decided to move the facility to the North Central Industrial Park. We've been there ever since, investing heavily in this business. And through the years, we've managed to grow this. Nearly 100% of what I produce and sell is sold outside of the state of Rhode Island. And with that, I don't have a pressing need to be located here to continue to build on our business. What I've noticed is that I can survive quite well in Rhode Island and enjoy it. But as of recently, I'm seeing a lot of legislation coming down that frankly is going to be harmful to our business. We just got off of 14 months of getting absolutely brutalized by this pandemic. Our business is still trying to recover. And the core of what we're doing is trying to produce enough profit and cash to sustain our operations as well as satisfy the lenders that have been gracious enough to lend us money. What I'm seeing with this tax movement, frankly, scares me. It is something that, in the midst of an economic time that's still tenuous, and those of us that are still trying to wake up out of this pandemic-induced decline in our business, it's a real concern. And we have a flow-through entity, an LLC, and so it would qualify to be subject to the tax increases which are proposing. And I want to remind you that we don't get the cash. The cash has to stay in the business. So though we report the profit, we don't get that money as we would have if it were wages. So we got to look at some way to get cash to satisfy all these obligations, including the additional burdens that you're going to be putting on us through this legislation. So I'm asking you to reconsider your position on this and do not put through the bills 5229 and 5227. Again, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak to you. I appreciate your service, and have a wonderful evening. Stay safe.
You too.
Thank you.
You too, Craig. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
Next witness. Hello, welcome to House Finance. You are live. If you could talk to us about the particular bill you're here to testify on for a couple minutes, go right ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. My name is Jacqueline Goldman, and I'm here to testify in support of House Bills 5227 and 5647, which I believe is the CEO surtax. I'll spend just like a minute or two talking about each, and I'll be pretty brief. So in terms of 5227, which creates the new tax bracket for the richest Rhode Islanders, this has the power to bring in millions of dollars for Rhode Island revenue. And I think that this money could go to a lot of things. So I work in overdose prevention work, and one of the things that we constantly see is like the agencies that are, trying to get funding to be able to do essential work like give out Narcan, pass out harm reduction supplies, stuff like that. They're constantly underfunded, and like even just like a few thousands of dollars here and there can help with that. The $128 million, which this is projected to do, has so much power to help out everyday Rhode Islanders. This is money for infrastructure, for public health measures, for overdose prevention. Like, I think the list is pretty endless. And, it's taxing folks who've by and large gotten much wealthier over the pandemic while the rest of us have really been suffering. So I think that, this is the kind of thing that could really stand to benefit the state as a whole and won't actually really harm anyone. These are not folks just with a little bit of money. This is people with a lot of money who really should be paying what they owe to the state. So now to talk about 5647, which is establishing the CEO tax for companies where the CEO makes more than 100 times the median worker. So I think that this is absolutely fair. I think that by having a bill like this, first of all, you're encouraging employers to actually pay their employees a living wage, and not to just like vastly benefit off of their labor for very little money. But also, once again, that would put money into the state. Now, business leaders will say that this isn't feasible or whatever, but you see there's actually an entire town in Spain called Mondragon that has hundreds of thousands of people, and the entire city is run where the businesses inside have to pay, where the CEO can't make more than 9 times the average worker. And they have like fantastic socioeconomic status like across all of the people, and like really good quality of life and stuff like that. And so being able to reduce the disparity between CEOs and their average workers is really good for everyone. So that's all that I want to say. I know you're getting a lot of testimony tonight, and so that's it.
Well, thank you so much for your testimony. We really appreciate that. Stay safe. And
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Good afternoon, Carl.
Yes.
Yes, how are you? This is Chairman Abdi. You're on House Finance. If you would just give us your full name, sir, the bill or bills that you are testifying on, and you have a couple of minutes to do so, please. So please proceed.
Yeah, my name is Carl Waddenston, President of Vibeco in Richmond, Rhode Island, Treasurer of Commerce Corp, Rhode Island, and Vice Chair of Operational Excellence and Lean for the state of Rhode Island. I am testifying on Bill 5227, or H5227, and Bill H5229. This bill is not an investment in the growth in gaining and retaining businesses in Rhode Island profitably or collaboratively. 80% of the businesses in Rhode Island are sub-Chapter S organizations. This is a pass-through of money to pay tax liability to Rhode Island and the federal government that shows up on our personal income, not as a gain, but as an accounting process. C corporations don't have to do it this way. Accounting has many functions. So I'll liken this to an organization that I know in the state, the Commerce Corp RI, which is a pass-through of funds to go out to business and community organizations on a balance sheet, much like us in sub-Chapter S corporations. It may look like a windfall of cash, profit, or earnings. They are not. It is a pass-through. I have an open invitation for Mr. Abney and anyone on the Finance Committee to come to our company, Vibeco, and get a better understanding of the scope and what it looks like in a small business tax raising and tax implications. I ask myself, what is driving a bill like this? For the life of me, I don't understand the why. Purpose is it to put RI in the back seat of competitiveness again? Just today, we were announced that we were second worst in unemployment, and these are just scenes from a prior book that we've seen in Rhode Island. And helping businesses is key to getting these workers back on the work log. So let me explain. Business looks at total cost of ownership and operations. With the freedom of information and access to information on the internet, attracting and retaining businesses is competitive with 49 other competitors, the other states in the United States, who are hungry and understand what the positioning and the policies that need to be in place for attraction of business, which grows state economies exponentially. Never mind the global opportunities we have as business leaders to relocate and expand and grow. The world has become another time zone. Barriers are low to entry, and business friendly is top of any organization's list. Participative growth, working together, not in silos. Business looks for stability.
That's just
I
a signal for
personally-
another, that's a signal for another 30 seconds, Carl.
Okay. Yeah. Businesses look for stability. So for me, it's workforce stability. It's stability in our government, our policies that are predictable and clear. If we don't have that kind of stability, it really makes us take pause to understand if this is a place that we want to invest and if it is a place for fertile ground to grow and gain our customer bases and share with the people of that state. And I'd also like to make mention, Mr. Abdi, of the lien bill that was passed executive order April 15, 2015. And I'd like everybody to look at that because that was helping state agencies reduce waste, keep people, empower people to be critical thinkers and save money. And one of the key places I'd like to take everybody from your finance committee is Rhode Island DEM. They are the poster child for doing more with less. So if you're wondering how money can be made, there are easy ways to improve the state and not on the backs of businesses. Thank you, Mr. Abdi. And that's an invitation for you to come. Please do.
Thank you. That's right. I'll try to make that happen, Carl.
Yes, sir.
I've got your number. Okay. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Do we have David on the line?
Yes, this is David Levesque from Brood Awakenings Coffee House. How are you guys tonight?
We're doing well. Just state the bills that you want to testify on for or against and give us a couple of minutes, please.
Sure. I'm testifying against both bills 5227 and 5229. As a small business owner in the state of Rhode Island, especially through these unprecedented times, I do not think increasing taxes in any way, shape, or form is the right thing to do. And I strongly suggest that you guys do not approve any new taxation in any way whatsoever. Any questions?
No, you were short and to the point, and I got the message, I guarantee you. So thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much, guys. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you, bye.
Appreciate it. Okay, next caller. Is this Maureen?
This is she.
Yes, you're on House Finance. Just give us your full name, of course, I know you, and the bills that you're testifying on, and give us a couple of minutes, please.
Great. Good evening, Chairman and members of the Finance Committee. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening. My name is Maureen Magret. I chair the Aging and Community Subcommittee of the Long-Term Care Coordinating Council, and I am testifying in support of House Bill 5681, sponsored by Representative Ruggiero, and I want to thank her for her sponsorship and her commitment to our older population, and also thank the several co-sponsors for their efforts to update and expand the state property tax relief law. The Aging and Community Subcommittee is really advocating to promote the economic security of our older population and also to ensure that accessible housing options are available to them because they really prefer to live safely at home if they can. And property tax relief is one small way to bring a bit of relief to the crushing housing cost burden faced by so many of our lower income older Rhode Islanders and also persons with disabilities. Representative Ruggiero gave some excellent and succinct testimony, and she talked about the enormous cost burden faced by seniors who live in their own homes and also those who rent. But I just want to emphasize a few economic factors about our older population. First, the average Social Security benefit is only $18,770, and about a third of older Rhode Islanders rely exclusively on Social Security. 20% of them are living on $20,000 or less. I think you all know about Rhode Island's high property taxes. They're the 7th highest in the country, and they contribute significantly to the housing cost burden faced by all of Rhode Islanders. To give you a little history lesson, the state property tax relief law was passed way back in 1997 with an income cap of $25,000. In 1999, that was changed to $30,000. That was, if my math is correct, 22 years ago, and it hasn't changed since then. I think it's time to modernize the law to increase the income cap to $40,000, to raise the maximum credit to $750,000 as called for in this bill. Now, you might think $400 is not a big deal to get an extra credit amount, but if your income is $20,000 or less, and you're struggling to stay in your home as an older person or a person with disability, believe me, $400 makes a big deal. So I would really encourage you to pass this law, even if you have to phase it in for a couple of years, as the representative suggested you might wish to do, and to make you comparable with some of our sister New England states, such as Massachusetts and Maine. So thank you so much for the opportunity to testify, and for all the work all of you are doing at this late hour. I guess it's tax night. So thanks again, Mr. Chairman and members of the Finance Committee.
Well, thank you so much for all you do, Maureen. We really appreciate that and the info that you give us. So stay safe and have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.